Leveraged learning: how the disruption of education helps lifelong learners and experts with something to teach, by Danny Inney. Higher education has become too expensive, demands too much time, and doesn't prepare most people for the real world. Higher education must become more efficient and effective. Under the burden of college debts, most recent graduates can't find worthy jobs. Young people need a strong work ethic and initiative. They won't acquire these traits through education. Poorly conceived educational content confuses, distracts, or overwhelms students. Tutorial help and feedback improve students' performance. Higher education must deliver functional fluency to all students. Today's job market requires leveraged learning, higher education that provides quickly digestible and immediately useful information. The three components of higher education's circle of life are learners, teachers, and businesses. Businesses should eliminate college degrees from their hiring requirements. Summary: the 6 layers of leveraged learning. Conventional higher education is broken. It costs too much and is inefficient and ineffective, except for the most select, prestigious universities, and for professions such as law, medicine, accounting, engineering, and architecture. Higher education is supposed to help people improve their lives for the future. And it once did precisely that. Today, however, education doesn't help young people prepare for and secure employment. Most recent college graduates have no jobs or inferior jobs. This is a bad bargain in light of their average $30,100 in college debt. And that debt will only grow. By 2028, college tuition may cost well over 6 figures per year. That's a lot of money for college-aged people to spend if they can't get jobs afterward. Today's students need a different approach: leveraged learning. It's no longer sufficient for education to impart knowledge and skills. Our rapidly evolving economy and culture demand insight in addition to knowledge. Knowledge is essential. But for most people, stretching out learning over 4 or more years of college turns out to be hugely inefficient and expensive. The great advantage of leveraged learning is that it is quickly digestible and immediately useful. Leveraged learning, which has 3 aspects: knowledge, insight, and fortitude, involves short and focused courses that impart information quickly. Such learning focuses on students' development of meaningful insight and promotes their resilience, which they need for intensive learning. Leveraged learning has 6 essential components. 1. Content. Educators must design the content of courses to provide utility and excellence. Planning content requires taking 5 steps. Begin with the learning outcomes. What results do students want to achieve? Work backward and plan out the assessments. How will you measure whether your students achieve their learning objectives? Use the assessments as the measure of the content. What must students learn? How well must they learn it? What do teachers need to communicate so students gain the requisite knowledge? Work backward, to the scaffolding they'll need in order to understand. What background characteristics must students have to absorb and understand your lessons? What if they lack these characteristics? Can you help students work around potential gaps? Prune your curriculum mercilessly. None of your educational content should ever be merely nice to have. If portions of your content are inessential, get rid of them. Poorly conceived content will confuse, distract, or overwhelm students. 2. What students need to succeed. Many people want to lose weight, quit smoking, or exercise daily, but they never do. They fail because changing your behavior is an uphill fight. Similarly, students want the benefits that derive from a higher education. But how many are willing to sacrifice to complete their courses? Your challenge as a teacher is to find a way to guarantee that your students successfully finish your coursework. Educators should focus on 6 elements. Make sure students can think clearly and deeply about what they learn. Provide students with effective learning strategies. Education is not just about content, it's about learning how to learn. Communicate that effective memorization requires plenty of sleep. Help your students understand that stress, fear and fatigue can interfere with higher-order thinking. Explain that, thanks to neuroplasticity, students can rewire their brains to increase their learning potential. 3. How learning will be shared. Today, instructors can select among as many different ways to teach as there are subjects. Options include classroom lectures, videos, online games, and much more. However you decide to handle the outlets you use to offer instruction, the best plan is to implement a shorter learning experience. 4. How students will navigate the learning. In the past, education was pretty basic. A teacher stood next to a blackboard lecturing students who sat at desks. How things have changed. Today, students may access their education through their computers. They may rely on material recorded weeks, months or years ago. They may listen to the instructor through earbuds as they exercise. They may utilize Zoom, Skype or other video conferencing tools. They may learn while experiencing an augmented reality simulation. The idea that modern technology eliminates only menial jobs, that well-educated workers are clear winners, may dominate popular discussion, but it's actually decades out of date. Economist Paul Krugman. Educators must rise to the challenge of staying current with these rapidly changing advances, because these changes bespeak the future and improve student learning experiences. One problem is that most educators have no viable frame of reference for the stunning new developments now underway. Compare the challenges of today's hard-to-decipher educational milieu with how static education has been for hundreds of years. Conventional education simply isn't the path to gainful employment that it once was. The majority of recent college graduates are either unemployed or underemployed. To illustrate, in North America, educators automatically assume that the proper teacher-student ratio is approximately 1 to 25. Why? This ratio dates back to the 12th century and Maimonides, the ancient Jewish scholar who first established the formula. But today's educators must not approach their work with a fusty viewpoint and out-of-date assumptions. That mode of teaching won't meet the needs of today's online and semi-synchronous education. Most educators translate digital as meaning desktop computers, but the proper way to think of digital today is mobile and interstitial, unfolding via many different devices. Educators need to get up to speed, and quickly. 5. The community and triggers to stay on task. Hyperbolic discounting is a cognitive bias. It's the tendency people have to base their actions on the consequences of something happening now instead of on the consequences of something that will happen later. On a practical basis, here's how this translates in real life. You want to start a diet so that you will be slim in 12 months, but today you eat a pizza and a couple of slices of blueberry pie. Degrees aren't the all-access pass to a career. The cost is exorbitant, the returns are meager and the entire situation is completely unsustainable. Accountability is the opposite of hyperbolic discounting. Students who fail to hold themselves accountable won't put in the necessary study time or pay enough attention to learn. To ward off the pernicious effects of hyperbolic discounting, educators must build accountability into the lessons they teach. They can accomplish this vital goal two ways. Forced minimum progression. Insist that all students meet the same course criteria at the same time, such as deadlines for work they submit. Educators should make no exception for any students. Raising the stakes in carrots and sticks. Ian Ayres writes about the value of commitment contracts. Ayres says that educators perhaps could penalize learners who sign a commitment contract but don't live up to it by requiring them to give money to an advocacy organization they dislike. Educators don't have to take things that far. They can employ other actions to notify students who fail to do their work, attend classes on a regular basis, and so on. To illustrate, one of the author Danny Inney's education programs attaches frowning face icons to the online course portals of students who don't meet their educational commitments. Reportedly, this frowning face strategy improves overall student behavior. 6. Help and coaching. Students who receive tutorial assistance perform much better than students who don't get such help. Educational psychologist Benjamin Bloom notes, the average tutored student was above 98% of the students who didn't receive any tutoring. However, providing the money and the number of teachers needed to give all students one-on-one tutoring is impractical. Bloom describes the main challenge as finding a method of teaching a group of students that is as effective as one-to-one tutoring. We need real education, which makes its beneficiaries more knowledgeable, more insightful and possessed of the fortitude to see their way through challenges. Ryan Craig, author of College Disrupted, believes in merging adaptive learning with competency-based learning. In this model, students progress at their own pace. If a student has difficulty, adaptive systems slow down the introduction of new material until the student demonstrates the ability to handle what's been presented already. Craig asserts that allowing the material to adapt to individual students strengthens and continually builds their belief in their ability to learn. That belief allows them to immerse themselves in their studies. If you're the only job applicant with a university degree, it gives you a huge advantage, but if every applicant has the same degree, it doesn't help. For most students to thrive, educational offerings should combine the latest advances in technology with the maximum amount of available teacher support. Start with mastery-based education, in which students don't move to new information until they fully master existing material. Monitor each student's comprehension and performance, and give each one useful feedback. The education system needs to teach in the most effective ways. It needs to use what science has taught us about how people learn to engage learners in rapid skill development. Technology can help. So can students' peers. Daphne Collar, the co-founder of Coursera, says properly structured peer feedback achieves the same positive results as instructor feedback. Such feedback has a double advantage: it serves both the students who receive it and those who provide it. Student tutors tend to learn most from the process. If such feedback doesn't help them, individual students can then secure a tutor or coach. If the educational experience doesn't reduce the time, money or risk that it takes to get to where we want to go, then we're better off without it. The 6 steps you need to follow to create an optimal learning experience are: begin with quality content, add success behaviors, organize great information delivery, create the best user experience, add accountability and provide individual support when necessary. Education's circle of life. In the Disney animated movie The Lion King, Mufasa, the lion who is king of the jungle, tells his son Simba that the world depends on the balanced, mutual dependency of everything in it. Simba wonders how the fact that lions eat antelopes could be part of a balanced system. Mufasa reminds him that when lions die, their bodies turn into the grass that sustains the antelope. Mufasa calls this the Great Circle of Life. Education's circle of life is made up of learners, teachers and businesses. Businesses tell teachers what they need students to know. Learners receive education from teachers. Teachers teach. Conventional education no longer prepares us for the real world, or offer us the useful skills that we need to be successful. Employers know this. If you are a student or adult learner, buying an education is an investment in your self-development. Seek smart investments that pay off with viable work skills and a better chance to get a good job. College might not be your best alternative. It's expensive, and the time you spend studying is a lost opportunity cost, in terms of what you could have earned working. Rather than a conventional college education, consider such options as missionaries, last-mile training, or a praxis-structured apprenticeship. Praxis's slogan is, "The degree is dead. You need experience." Lambda, Turing or General Assembly offer coding boot camps, which cost less than most colleges. Some programs charge nothing or very little up front. Students remit a percentage of their pay when they find a job. To grow as you advance, become a lifelong learner. Routinely test yourself on what you learn. Deep learning, real understanding and the development of competence all involve the active participation of the student in the learning process. If you are a teacher or a subject area expert, do all you can to keep up with your evolving field. Commit to professional reading on a regular basis. Pay attention to your industry's thought leaders. If you don't follow this advice, you can expect to get left behind. When you teach, seek course material that enables you to satisfy the primary goal of delivering functional fluency to your students. Work hard to empower them. Learning used to be something that you did for a long time at the start of your career, but that just doesn't work in today's world. If you are a business leader, consider why it is that your company's most successful performers are succeeding. You'll realize that university degrees have little or nothing to do with their success. Change your job postings to stress what matters. Ernst & Young Professional Services in the United Kingdom changed their hiring criteria so that degree classification is not a factor. And Laszlo Bock, Google's previous head of people operations, came to believe that the grades its job candidates earned in degree programs were worthless as a criteria for hiring. About the author. Founder and CEO of Mirasee, an online business education company, Danny Inney hosts the Business Reimagined podcast and created the Audience Business Masterclass and Course Builders Laboratory.